There's trouble in New York City. Mayor Eric Adams has become the first sitting mayor in the rotten history of the Big Apple to be indicted for committing crimes. Now, the criminal charges are grabbing headlines, but we want to make clear that these are just accusations at the moment, and he's innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Now, the indictment alleges that Mayor Adams took $10 million in illegal donations and bribes. And the U.S. Attorney's Office claims that he sought and accepted gifts and contributions from wealthy foreign business people and even a Turkish government official. Mayor Adams on Monday morning pushed back against the serious accusations and argued that he was being targeted for speaking out against the Biden administration.
My fellow New Yorkers, it is now my belief that the federal government intends to charge me with crimes. If so, these charges will be entirely false, based on lies. But they would not be surprising. I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target. And a target I became. For months, leaks and rumors have been aimed at me in an attempt to undermine my credibility and paint me as guilty. Just this past week, they searched the home of our new police commissioner, looking for documents from 20 years ago, just 1 week after he joined my administration. Enough. I will fight these injustices with every ounce of my strength and my spirit.
Now, you might recall last fall when Mayor Adams spoke out fiercely against the Biden-Harris border crisis, and he said it was destroying New York City.
Support. And let me tell you something, New Yorkers. Never in my life have I had a problem that I did not see an ending to. I don't see an ending to this. I don't see an ending to this. This issue will destroy New York City. Destroy New York City. We're getting 10,000 migrants a month. One time we were just getting Venezuela. Now we're getting Ecuador. Now we're getting Russian speaking coming through Mexico. Now we're getting Western Africa. Now we're getting people from all over the globe have made their minds up that they're going to come through the southern part of the border and come into New York City. And everyone is saying it's New York City's problem.
Joining me now to break it all down is Matthew Peterson, editor-in-chief of Blaze Media, and Josh Hammer, senior editor-at-large for Newsweek and host of the Josh Hammer Show. So, Josh, what implications could this indictment have for the New York City mayor?
Well, he's in deep doo-doo. I mean, he's going to have to face a choice as to whether to try to slog this out or resign. You know, it's interesting, actually, in New York State, the governor can actually just remove the mayor of New York City. So if Kathy Hochul wanted to, if she wanted to make this problem go away from a New York State perspective tomorrow, she would be able to do so. And, you have a lot of far-left Democrats in the city, people like AOC who have been circling the wagons for a little while now, calling for Eric Adams to get ahead of this forthcoming indictment and to actually resign. I mean, so far, it seems like he's going to fight it. His press conference this morning was actually fascinating. It seems like he's playing the race card. I mean, he was up there surrounded by, I think, exclusively black people. I did not see a single non-black individual up there. That he actually had an NAACP leader speak on his behalf at that press conference earlier today. So he's trying to make this out to be a racist prosecution. He obviously would not be the first person to do so. Innocent until proven guilty, that obviously is how the American justice system works. But I have to say, upon thumbing through the indictment, it looks very bad. I mean, it looks like this has been going on for years now. This investigation started, last I checked, about 3 years ago. The country of Turkey is the country that, above all, is really at the center of this. Apparently, it was a fairly straightforward quid pro quo, whereby Eric Adams would take tens and tens of thousands of dollars in free business class airfare from Turkish Airlines to kind of saunter off around the world. And in exchange for that, not only did he get campaign contributions, but he also would then thereby help Turkey build its long sought after fancy new skyscraper consulate. Now that's inherently problematic in its own right, because we shouldn't like corruption for the sake of corruption. But Turkey also happens to be a deeply problematic geopolitical actor. I mean, they're technically a NATO country. They're not exactly an ally. Recep Tayyip Erdogan has been a Hamas, mollycoddling, Muslim Brotherhood adjacent nut job for the 25 years or so that he's been in power. The last thing you'd want is the mayor of the nation's largest, most important city to be in the pocket of Turkey, especially at a time like this with the Middle East on fire as it is. So there's a lot to sift through here. I think that Adams is showing indications that he intends to try to slog this out. But I mean, look, he wouldn't be the first mayor in the history of New York City, going back to Daniel Day-Lewis and Gangs of New York and Tammany Hall. He wouldn't be the first high-profile Democrat leading New York City to find himself in some sort of deep sort of venality and bribery and corruption. That's for sure.
Yeah, Josh, let's talk about that aspect, because what fascinates me, given my own background investigating some of the 88 cities in Los Angeles County 15, 20 years ago, and you see now some of those people getting in trouble with the FBI. Jose Huizar, the New York Times had an article not long ago about how many city council people in LA got in trouble. My general take on this is probably similar to yours, which is that technically speaking, most major city political machines are corrupt or violate the law in various ways. And that happens every day, right? But if you go after a mayor, that's a very powerful person and one of, if not the most powerful city mayors in the country. That's something else entirely. And like you said, this took years. So, I mean, one take would be, look, Turkey was involved. That got the Fed's eyes for good reason. And so they came in on this. But another take would be, and certainly Mayor Adams has encouraged this a little bit, and many on the right are wondering, is this really, maybe he deserves it, maybe everything in here is true, but is this really a targeting operation because he did speak out against the administration? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I'm skeptical that it is retribution for the migrants for a few reasons. And I hate to be a buzzkill. I know that's a very popular theory on right-wing social media, so I hate to be a buzzkill, but I'm skeptical for a few reasons. The single most obvious reason that I'm skeptical is because Eric Adams, prior to his 180-degree turn, prior to that clip that we saw earlier where he said that this is going to kill New York City, he was welcoming them in with open arms. I mean, he declared New York City a sanctuary city. Last I checked, and I still have relatives in the New York area, that's where I grew up, there are any number of hotels, condo buildings that are still stocked to the brim with migrants right now. Blue collar workers are having, they're already sky high rent prices that have been skyrocketed even higher due to the supply shortage by this whole crisis. Eric Adams really brought all of that on himself. So, it's a little rich for him to try and pull turn 180 degrees around here and then kind of, have this Jeff Sessions border hawk kind of, vintage. I mean, I for one very much personally, I'm just not buying that. Furthermore, this investigation has apparently been going on for a few years now. My good friend Cal Markowitz had a great essay for the Washington Examiner kind of going through the various allegations. It's kind of a death by a thousand cuts situation. The Turkish stuff is the highest profile stuff in the indictment for me, I think, for sure, because it's a foreign power. It's Erdogan. He's a problematic actor and so forth. But there was a lot of alleged bribery going on here, a lot of attempts to delete evidence when it came to communications with people that he frankly should not have been communicating it with in the first instance. Here is what I will say. Here is what I will say. I'm not necessarily buying that it's retribution for the migrants, but here's what I will say. I am very open to the possibility. In fact, I think it's actually probably more likely than not that at a certain level, whether it's intentional or kind of just instinctive and visceral, at a certain level, I do think that the Democrat lawfare complex, as I like to call it, the Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Merrick Garland, Jack Smith regime, they are choosing probably low-hanging fruit Democrats on their own side of the aisle to try to make an example out of them in order to try to gaslight and bamboozle the right, aka us and our side, into thinking that the justice system is all fine and dandy, everything's kosher, and it's all good out there. So I think, for instance, the Bob Menendez prosecution, which happened right there in New York City. He obviously is from the adjoining state of New Jersey. Bob Menendez was an easily expendable asset for the Democratic Party, insofar as he, believe it or not, was actually probably one of the more moderate U.S. senators in the Senate Democratic caucus. Not really saying a whole lot these days. Similar for Eric Adams. So, there might be a little bit of this kind of mentality going on where they like to make a show of the timing of it, insofar as they're trying to convince the right that everything is fine and dandy. And we should not fall for that, by the way. But honestly, this indictment reads quite bad. And I would not be surprised at all if Eric Adams were actually quite guilty on this.
Yeah, Josh, I just know our mutual friend Jesse Kelly used to go out there and say, hey, man, Eric Adams, he's going to be the next one in line for president for the Democratic nominees. But now, all for naught.